What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to Fin and Football. It's been a long time, but this year is a very, very intriguing draft year, at least in my mind, because this is a year where we have a very heavy defensive draft, which we have not seen in a very long time. You know, the shift towards offenses and having a high-powered offense in this league has taken over in the draft and even in the college levels. So the fact that we're going to see something a little bit different and possibly see a draft where we could have a change up and maybe let the NFL defenses get stronger is going to be very interesting. So over the next hour or so, I'm going to have a couple uploads of my top 5 most intriguing players, not my top 5 players talent-wise. This is just who I think is interesting. So let me know what you guys think, who you think is the most interesting prospects. In this video, we're going to cover Nick Bosa, the D-end out of Ohio State, brother of Joey Bosa, who already has established himself in the NFL. Now, another thing about Bosa is that he has not only does he have his brother Joey, but his father also played, and he has an uncle who played professional baseball way back in the day. So he has a very good lineage of athletes. And when you see somebody like that who has a very good family tree of athletic, predominantly if they're football players, you're guaranteed in there. But if you have a family member who is a known athlete, your stock is going to be higher just because they believe that you have higher potential if you have that athletic trait that was already in your family. So now to get into Nick Bosa, personally, I think he is the number 2 player in the draft. I know a lot of people view him as the number 1, but I personally really, really like Quinnen Williams a lot. But to stay on Bosa, I think he's great size for an NFL defensive end. A lot of the ends in this draft either are edge rushers in college who were put at D-end, and since college you can be smaller depending on your conference. In the NFL, it doesn't really work like that. Some of these guys are going to be small defensive ends or outside linebackers, edge rushers in a 4-3 defense or a 3-4. So Bosa is probably one of the bigger D ends in this draft. He has great intangibles as well. You can see it when you watch him play. I'll throw some highlights in here in a little bit at some point. But his intangibles are probably the best in this draft. You can see that he uses the knowledge and everything that he's learned really, really well throughout every single game, every single play. You can see that he's always looking up. A lot of these DNs, you see them look right into the eyes or right at the running back or right at the quarterback. But with Bosa, you see him scan the whole backfield. You see him watching everything. He's somebody who you can tell watches film and takes things very seriously because he's always in the right place at the right time. That's one of the biggest things with him that I noticed, at least. He always knows where to put himself. He doesn't shoot inside, which is something that so many defensive ends do. And I know my experience playing football that it's coached at a very young age that you don't go inside. You never go inside. You always contain the outside, but some guys, you see them, even in the NFL, you see some guys shoot inside. They want to try and get the faster route to the sack, and then it's a play action, and the running back goes to the outside, and it's a huge gain. You see it all the time. And it's because guys want to be a hero. Sometimes the best thing to do is just contain the outside as an end, occupy that tackle, let the linebacker get there, let the other defensive tackles get there, just occupy space, get somebody else occupied and blocking you. And Bosa is very, very good intangibles-wise, and also he's somebody who clearly was coached very well, but also listened to his coaches. He doesn't sit out there and freelance. Somebody like Michael Bennett, if you followed anything with Michael Bennett, who I personally think is one of the better defensive ends in our generation, he had a tendency to just freelance. And Pete Carroll even said that they kind of let him do what he wants, which is great when you have somebody that has that just raw talent. And Michael Bennett is very talented, but the problem is with that is that other players on that defense don't know what you're going to do. So you want to shoot inside, okay, on a stunt, when you're stunting your ends, basically what that means is that either they're going to slant in, they're slanting out, depending on the play call. And then we had a play for my team. It was the ends would be slanting in, the tackles would cross, and then linebackers would be blitzing, or sometimes we'd be back in coverage. So when you're stunting, you have the play call to fill in where they left. And somebody like Michael Bennett, who freelanced, they didn't know what he was going to be doing. So sometimes it would let for some big gains after the Legion of Boom was the Legion of Boom. Now it's more or less just they're an average, slightly above average defense. And since then he's left. He's in Philadelphia. Didn't really work out there. He wasn't the force that he was because they didn't let him freelance. And he does not do well if he's not freelancing. One of the other things I noticed about him too is he's extremely NFL ready. He has the strength. He has the size, like I said before. He has the speed. He has the measurables. One of the biggest things is arm length. Now, it might sound crazy and weird to some people who aren't people who follow these types of things, but when you're drafting a lineman, either offensive or defensive, your arm length and your wingspan is huge. Because think about it, the longer your arms are, the longer you can push them away from you. So you're gaining more separation here. And it allows for you to be able to make moves differently, and it's harder for them to get their hands on you. So as far as measurables go and his talent-wise, he's 100% NFL ready. He can contribute day one. Another thing, too, is he shows a lot more potential than Joey did in college. Now, Joey did play a lot more games than Nick did because Nick has a lot of injury concerns. That's my biggest knock on him. But I really do think that if you can keep Nick healthy, you can have a healthy rotation behind him, and you're not going to have him out there for almost every snap. He could be probably one of the best defensive ends in this league easily in the next 2-3 years, without a doubt. His ceiling is so high, but a lot of scouts and a lot of team officials believe that he's already hit that ceiling. Somebody like Quinnen Williams, his ceiling is so high, and yet he's only down here, which is scary. They don't even think he's come close to his potential yet. And something like that's scary, and that you draft players higher if you believe they have a higher ceiling and they're already so good. So Quinnen Williams has so much room to improve. Nick Bosa, I don't know how much room he has to improve. Just watching him, I didn't see much that he can improve on, which sometimes is good, but if you're really good already, you want to get to great. And sometimes if you max out early, you won't get to that level of being great. So another thing, too, is that he can play outside linebacker because he's quick. He's extremely quick for a defensive end. He can get across the field. You've seen it plenty of times where he's going across the field after the run is to the other side, and he gets there and he makes the play. A play goes down the field. He's able to chase him down. So he could play outside linebacker either as an edge rusher or in a 3-4 or in a 4-3. There's teams that believe he could play outside linebacker if he has decent coverage skills, which that is huge. Teams love versatility in this day and age. You look at a team like the Cowboys, for example, my team, of course. They drafted Byron Jones, who a lot of people thought might have been a reach, but they drafted him as a corner. They played him at corner. Then they tried him at safety, and he was decent at first at corner, but he was in the slot. Safety, he was doing a lot of slot corner work, and he's good. He's really, really good at corner in the slot, and he's really good at safety, but they moved him outside. And when you're playing outside corner, you get to use your athleticism so much more, and he's a freak athlete, but he has the ability to move around in that defense. Somebody like Tyron Crawford, who a lot of people believe is overpaid, which I agree if you just look at his numbers, but sometimes you overpay for that versatility. He's a very good defensive tackle. He's a very good defensive end, and you can move him around. People get hurt. They need a rotation. They want to try some different things, different schemes, different stunts, whatever it is. Versatility is key in today's NFL. Now, Bosa had the highest win rate as a pass rusher as a true sophomore. The highest pass rush rate in college football. That's in the entire nation. I mean, in the NFL, that's really good, but that's at only 32 teams. Think about how many college teams there are all across the nation, not even just in his conference, all across the nation. That is huge. Now, that is something that a team has to look at, and they have to really realize what that means, because Ohio State is in a very strong conference, and a lot of those guys end up going to the NFL. So he's going up against future NFL talents, and he's getting the highest win percentage in pass rush. That's huge. Another thing is my coach called it your toolbox. You should have a lot of different moves in your toolbox. Basically what that means is you have the rip, the spin, the bull rush, all your different pass rush moves and your moves to get off a block. Bosa has a lot of tools in his toolbox. He has the swipe rip, which is basically you'd swipe down and then you'd rip the arms up, and it causes them to get off balance and turn their hips. Once you get a tackle or a guard to open up their hips, it's done, because that automatically means that you won, because they don't have that footing. You have to stay square. And once those hips open up, you can blow right past them. So that swipe rip move is one of the best moves to use if you're good at it. And Bosa is so good at that. He uses it to perfection. You see it time and time again on his highlight tape that he would blow past people and get to the quarterback, get into the backfield every single time when he's using that. It's very refined. It's very tight. You don't want it to be too wide, because when it gets too wide, it gives them time to come back, recover. But if you get nice and tight onto them, there's no way that they're going to come back. Now, he also sets up the swipe, and then he goes into a bull rush. Because now you swipe, their hands aren't on you, and you can bull rush right through them. And that's if you want to get inside. Now, you shouldn't go inside, like I said, but sometimes it calls for it. If you see it's a pass, you can get inside the tackles. It's very useful for quick pass rush, but also you have to be able to adjust. So the bull rush is another great move that he uses. He has insane balance. You can see it in his stance, and when he's coming out of his stance, a lot of guys come straight up. You want to stay low, you want to stay parallel, you want to keep your chest up, and you have to use everything from your legs. Your legs are creating your momentum, they're creating your balance. So when you push through somebody, the lower you are, the more balance you have, the more likely you are to win. Something you'll hear a lot if you play football, or even if you're just watching a game, is that the lower man will win. And it's one of the truest things that you will ever be told in life. Because when you're so low, you have more explosiveness to push out. And also it's harder to get their hands on you. But more importantly, you explode out of that. You can push them right back. You get all the power from your legs, and then you have your upper body strength too. So Bosa uses that to perfection. Another thing about him is he has strong hands. Now, that doesn't sound important, but when you think about that you're swiping people's arms down, yes, it's coming from your arm, it's coming from your chest, but more importantly, you have to have a strong hand. You have to be able to also have your hand in the ground and push off. His hands are fast as well, and you can see it when they're in the pass rush moves and they're moving their hands around and they're swiping the arms down, they're moving their hands and getting onto the chest. Those are some of the most important qualities in a defensive end. That you have to have strong, fast hands, quick movements. It'd be great jump off the ball, which Bosa has. He's ready for the snap. Some guys you see very slow get up or get off. And some guys are able to overcome that with their great pass rush moves. But Bosa does not have that problem. He has the quick get off, and then he has those great pass rush moves. This is what makes him one of the best prospects in this draft, probably one of the best defensive ends we've seen coming out of college football in a very long time. Now, my biggest thing about him is that, unlike a lot of great athletes, he's not relying solely on his athleticism. He takes everything that coaches have taught him, everything that he's learned, everything that he's seen, everything he's watched on film, and he's relying more on that than he is relying on his athleticism. He's not relying so much on that speed, that strength. He's relying on his balance, being taught that a lower man wins. His pass rush moves, how to refine them, staying tight, not going inside. That is huge. If you can follow the basics and you're a freak athlete, you're going to be insane in the NFL. It is a proven fact. You look at some of the greatest ends, most of them were not freak athletes. They just did the basics right. And that is one of my favorite things about Nick Bosa, watching him, is that he doesn't abandon his basics. And that's something that teams have to look at and value very highly, because you see a lot of these college guys. In college, you can get away with abandoning that. In the NFL, that's not going to work. These guys are stronger, faster, smarter, better coached than you see in college, most of the time. So if you get somebody on the basics, understand them perfectly, and is a freak athlete, you better be drafting that person really high on your board. If you're not taking him, if you're not trading up to draft him, if you need a defensive end like the Raiders, you're doing something wrong. So now that's pretty much all I have on Nick Bosa. I'm going to keep it short, going to keep it sweet, just going to keep it right to the most important things. I hope you guys enjoy the draft later. Watch it on ESPN at 8 o'clock. And I'll be back tomorrow with some more up-to-date on the draft, what I think of some of the picks, some of my favorite picks in the draft, and reactions. See you guys later.